So let's look experientially at what you were just talking about. We hear in the distance the fan from the piece of equipment, and at the same time, we feel a bodily sensation in our hands. The question, I guess, is, as I experience both the feeling in my hand and the sound, which appears distant, in reality, are these two sensations and perceptions appearing in the same place, or are they appearing at different places? What's the truth of that in my experience?
Yes.
And the thing that's interesting in that experiment, and this is an experiment that I learned from you and from your book, is that the immediate reaction of the conditioned self is to think that no, this experience that I call my hand, or this feeling, this bodily sensation I feel in my hand, is closer to me than the sound of this fan, which is across the room. And it takes time of sitting with that, really in silence, to realize that, you know something, that's not what's really going on.
Yes.
That the sound of this fan is going on in the identical space that the feeling is that I attribute with my hand. It's like either a sorting process that happens after the fact, or it's some kind of optical illusion, or it's some kind of an illusory thing that I automatically categorize some of those sensations and perceptions that I'm having as being associated with what I've called me, and some not. Now, the process of doing that, this is something that I was talking to you about yesterday, which I think is so vital and something that's never talked about on film or in books or in anything, which is that the process of sitting and experimenting and experiencing this over time collapses the amount of time that the conditioning operates in me. In other words, the first time I sit here and I experience the sound of the fan as being remote, and the sensation inside my hand as being closer to me than that, it may take me 15, 20 minutes of just sitting in the presence of that before all of a sudden it becomes very clear that all of these sensations and perceptions that are occurring are actually occurring in exactly the same space. As I continue to do that exercise, day in and day out, moment to moment, and whenever I can afford to focus my attention in that manner, that period of time between the conditioned response of here and there and the experience of everything's happening at one place gets shorter and shorter. And this is something that I've never heard anyone talking about, but it's almost like deprogramming.
Yes, what's important to make clear is that experience is always already what it is, irrespective of our interpretation of it. And what we come to realize is actually that the sound of the fan and the bodily sensation have always been in the same place and made out of the same stuff. So what we're doing is not in any way manipulating or changing experience. All we're doing is looking at it. As you said, we're just sitting with it. In a sense, we're allowing the nature of experience to reveal itself. We're separating out the experience itself from the mental commentary. There's the experience itself, and then there's the label that says, this bodily sensation is closer to me than the sound of the fan. And in fact, even before that happens, there is a label which says that I am this body. And then the second interpretation is, not only am I this body, this is closer to me than... This consciousness has never been exclusively associated with the body. The sound of the fan has never been further from me than this. So nothing really changes in this. All that's happening is that the nature of experience is becoming more and more obvious. And as you say, when we experiment to begin with, it may take some time because the conditioning is so strong. The experience and the commentary are so close, they're almost
identical. When you start.
It takes some time to separate out. It's like salad dressing. We think it's one material. the fact itself, the experience itself, and the interpretation which says, I am closer.
Further, right.
Yes. And we just sit with that, and they slowly separate. We take the oil, the interpretation, and we put it on one side. We just put it out and just stay with the sensation and allow the obviousness of the actual experience. So it's not that we suddenly have a new experience and think, wow, that's an amazing new experience. No, we just think, oh my goodness, of course. It's so obvious. The sound is inseparable from the presence which hears it. It's one, exactly the same way that the bodily sensation, when it is present. So we sit with our experience. We simply sit with it, and we allow it to reveal itself as it is. We put the interpretation, the mind's interpretation, on one side. We don't have to get rid of the interpretation.
Right.
We don't have to destroy it. It's useful. But it's an interpretation. And we just let the fact of the experience speak for itself. And as we do that, to begin with, the interpretation seems to be an inherent part of the experience itself. But if we're very, very simple, very, very childlike, and we just sit with the experience, the raw fact, the sound and the sensation, we put them both in front of us, and we experience just the raw experience itself, it becomes very clear that the sound is at the same distance from the perceiving consciousness as the bodily sensation is. And that distance is no distance at all. Try to find, ask yourself the question, is there more space between me, that is me, this perceiving consciousness, and a bodily sensation, than between me, this perceiving consciousness, and the sound of the fan? Do I have an actual experience of a greater distance between I as consciousness and the sound than we do between I and consciousness and the sensation? What is our experience? What is that distance? There's no distance. It is one.
Right. There is no boundary, there is no border, there is no space.
Yes.
They are the same. They are integral.
However, when the sound is present and when the bodily sensation is present, its presence is one with that which knows it. There is no space, there is no distance between that which knows and that which is known. There is no distance between me and the bodily sensation or the sound. When I say me, I mean me as consciousness. They are one experience.